Now, there's lots of different type of smoothing in Max. There's a mesh smooth, which adds polygons to make for a smoother surface. And there's smoothing groups. And smoothing groups are kind of like an optical illusion. And they blend the normals of the polygons together so that when it's rendered, you get a smooth or gradiated finish to the material. And we're going to do a little experiment to show you what I mean. I'm going to render this close up. And you can get this scene out of my box, but I'm going to render this so you see what we got. Now let's make it a different color. That wasn't very smart. There we go. Okay, so what we've got right now is we've got a smoothing group up here and on the bottom and on the sides. Because this object should render, I'm going to set this up with a faceted material here. It should render like this. See those side lines? That's what we really have here in these segments. That's actually what it should render like. But because we've got smoothing groups on it, make this one the same color or thereabouts with everything set up right, we get this smoothness. Now as you're modeling, you may mess up the smoothing groups and not even know it. When you create new geometry, like with a bevel, a connect, creating a new polygon, a bridge, basically anything that's creating new vertices, edges, polygons, then you're going to have to add a smoothing group. And so your tank might look kind of faceted right now. Here's how we add, or here's what might happen. Let's do an experiment here. I'm going to convert this to Edit Poly, go to Polygons, go to select these guys in the middle, and I'm going to bevel those on Local Normal, and I'm going to make the outline amount come down, and we've made many structures like this. But I've created right here and right here are new geometry. And what you're going to see is, see how this is smooth, this is faceted, this is smooth, and it's actually faceted under here where the bevel is. Because the new geometry doesn't have a smoothing group. Now, we need to add a smoothing group to that to make it look right. So we're under Editable Poly, Polygon. I'm going to select just those areas that we just created or that we want to change the smoothing group on. And we go all the way down till we see these numbers here. Smoothing groups. And they're under Polygon Properties, so again, they're way down here at the bottom. Right there. And we need to pick a smoothing group. Doesn't really matter which one we pick as long as we want the default setting. I'm just going to pick 2. And now when I render this, see how that's nice and smooth there because the smoothing group is smoothing it. If we apply the smoothing group to the whole object, so I'm going to say 2 is now the whole object, it's going to get this real blobby look. We don't want that. That looks ugly. And what's happening, the normals, or the way that these polygons are facing, are all getting blended together, and it looks very bland. If you want to remove a smoothing group, you just unclick these buttons, then add a new one. And which smoothing group goes where, for our purposes right now, isn't all that important. There we go. So now we're back to where we were. So smoothing groups, in general, are what you want to apply to the tank sides and certain objects. Don't apply the same smoothing group around a 45-degree angle or a 90-degree angle if you don't want it to look really smooth, and even at then, and when you get past about 33 degrees, it's not going to look very realistic. You probably need a little bit more geometry in there to make the transition smooth. Now, I'm going to delete this little pipe here, and we're going to make there we go, reset all that. I'm going to hit G here to get rid of this grid. And I'm going to make a sphere in my top viewport. I'm just going to drag it out and hit Zoom Extents All. I'm going to make my sphere an editable poly. Now I'm going to grab the middle piece of this sphere, right through the middle of it, all the way around, and I'm going to apply a different smoothing group to that than is on the rest. So I've applied 2 and I've unclicked 1, which was the default smoothing group. And then I'm going to select these surfaces here, which have 1 on them, and I'm going to apply smoothing group 3 to those. And now what happens, zoom in here, so you can see it. You can see that I've got a line here where those smoothing groups collide. And that's what I wanted. And what's happening is everything in each group is smoothing together, but where there's a border between 2 groups, they don't particularly smooth together very well. Now, if we wanted to smooth those together, I could grab the polygons that overlap the line. The line's right here between the 2 groups. You'll see these 2 buttons are blocked out because those groups are already taken by those 2 surfaces. I'm going to apply 4, and what 4 is going to do is act as a blending group, and see how it's blended that line together. So smoothing groups can be very helpful in a lot of ways. They make a low polygon object look smooth most of the time. And they can also smooth around angles that would otherwise take too much geometry to make look smooth. So play with the smoothing groups, get used to using them, know how to turn them off, add them, add layering to them so you can smooth over other groups, and just in general kind of play around with this area so that you really know what's going on. Also play with the Select by Smoothing group. You hit this button. These little guys are the 3 smoothing groups that I'm using. If I hit 2, I can select by that smoothing group. That's 4. Or I could select 3 and 4, and it will select both groups for me. So play with the smoothing groups and kind of get used to using those.